Good morning. My name is Tennyson E. Stead. I'm the creator of Jump Rangers, and welcome to the Rangers Roost. This is a morning stream on Mondays at 10 a.m. Pacific when we sit down and just check in, talk about geek culture, talk about games, talk about movies, talk about the work of making games and movies. And I don't really have much of a plan for today other than to see if anybody checks in. I just finished a screenplay for a producer friend and for a director that's going to be shot in Thailand. It's a martial arts movie. I can't say more than that necessarily, but I'm pleased with it. It's very much of a piece with the 90s and 2000s action comedies where it's very self aware, it's very interested in pushing boundaries. Um, it's got a strong sense of adventure, it's got heart. I like it. It was a fun movie. I'm excited to see what happens with it. I really hope the director's pleased. I think I did a pretty good job of realizing their vision for the project, and giving the actors every opportunity. That's kind of how I go into a screenplay, and maybe that's what we should talk about today. That's Luna. Luna doesn't like it when I stream. What's that? Luna thinks I'm reprimanding you. Luna's telling me knock it off. She's probably right. She's probably right. So this is kind of, to me, the secret of collaborative art in general. And it's a conversation I've been having a lot with screenwriters that I work with and that I mentor. It's a conversation that I've had with directors that I write for. It's probably a good talk to have today. So, um, the ideas and the kind of fetishes, the interests that we have as creators, the things that we obsess over, are not actually the point of our work. And this is not as true when we're dealing with more solitary forms of art. Maybe if we're painting something or if we're writing something, maybe the ideas we obsess over are maybe the ideas to bring the reader or the viewer into our world and share that with them. But if we're doing a comic book, if we're doing a movie, if we're doing something inherently collaborative, it's not our world. You know, it is in its best version of itself the product of the best efforts of everybody involved and not just the efforts of everybody to realize our best efforts. There's a diminishing returns curve there, in other words. If we're establishing the totality of the vision, then I'm getting a look from Ippy Looney. Okay, Ippy Looney's listening. Oh, I see. I'm using big words, so Ippy Looney decided to pay attention. So if if the totality of the vision is our purview, then it is everybody else's job not to screw it up. The idea is perfect. The creation will be less than perfect. So everybody who gets involved takes a small percentage of that excellence away through their failures. This isn't the ideal, mind you. This is what happens when we have one person in charge. This is why I don't agree with auteur theory in film, right? If everybody who's involved takes a small piece of the potential of the project away, you know, you're on a diminishing returns curve. The project can only be so good as the vision, and it won't be as good as the vision, and you're just on a train to disappointment town the whole time. And the only hope that you have is that people disappoint you as little as possible. If you have an actor and they take away 1%, maybe that's not so bad, but you have a cast of 100, so where does that leave you? Right? And then you've got all the people in the camera crew and all the people in the production and this and that. Whereas if the purpose of us as creative leaders is to empower the people that we work with to deliver the best that they have to offer, then there's no reason why we can't do just as excellent a job. There's no reason why we can't provide the best tools, but ultimately, in that version of the project, our job is not to sort of build a box around the vision. Our job is to give, as writers or whatever it is that we're doing in that project, the direction, whatever, give the other collaborators the best opportunities to step in and create their own vision to the degree that it conforms to the overall sort of needs of the project. Not necessarily our idea of what the project should be, but as long as they're creating in a way that doesn't um, hijack the project from everybody else who's working on it. You see what I'm saying? As long as everybody has a common thread to follow, and that's one of the tools that we provide is a baseline of design or a baseline of tone or a baseline of this or a baseline of that. We provide those tools. But if we give everybody on the production the resources to do their best work, then it's not a diminishing returns curve, it's a compounding curve. So we deliver an amazing script that tells an amazing story, and then the actors come in and bring even more specificity and even more urgency to the performances than the characters had on the page. They're not just trying to realize a vision of the character. At that point, they're actually co-creating the character and developing a new character using the parts that we've handed them. That doesn't necessarily betray anything that we've written, but that builds on it in unexpected and more detailed ways. The director steps in. They're not just filling in blanks. They're actually telling a story using the blueprint that we've provided. You know? And so on and so forth. And ultimately, in the case of cinema, the point of this process is to give the audience the opportunity to tell their own story, really, right? I don't know if we've talked about this, but one of the things that I'm constantly saying to my mentees is that there is a big difference between an audience that's watching and an audience that's waiting for something to happen. The core difference between literature and movies is that literature is built on observations. We as writers, we make our observations so the audience can see what we're getting at and what we think and what we see about the world. And there's value in that. There's a whole structure to that we can get into, but in a movie theater, audiences don't want our observations. They want to make their own observations because in the literal sense they come to watch. They're not coming to see what we have to say. They're coming to watch a movie. They want to see people do things, and then they want to make their own observations about what it means and how those things maybe should have been done or whatever. Whatever they want to observe, they're going to observe it while they're there, and that's what they're going to talk about when they leave the movie theater. We are giving them the opportunity to sit and watch what these characters do, and the story is only complete in the mind of the audience. They're telling the story. That's the engaging part of cinema. That's the whole point. And if we tell them the story the way that we do in literature, we take away the most engaging part of cinema. Right? So we are, as screenwriters, actually empowering the actors and the director just so they, in turn, can empower the audience. And that diminishing return curve gets very steep if we flip that process around and we make it about empowering ourselves. Because then the actors, the director, they're trying to use a small piece of our empowerment, our genius or whatever, right, to empower themselves. And then the audience is fighting for the scraps that are left. And what I'm discovering, or at least what I'm looking for in game design and in play, is that same transaction. It's not going to happen in the same way. But good game design isn't about pulling somebody into your system. This is why I don't like the microtransaction-y appy games. I do like appy games. There's some really fun appy games, but you are supposed to play the game. The game is not supposed to play you. Right? And this is a problem with toys too. Our society has gotten very confused about what play is and how play works. And when I look at it, this is really the reason why I like Star Citizen so much, is because it's about giving people the tools to play, as opposed to giving them the opportunity to be subjected to an experience, right? You're supposed to get the tools to play so that you can play in a fun, productive way with the other people who are playing. And that's true in toys, that's true in games. That's true anywhere where play is the activity that we're really talking about. And so much of what goes into design of toys and games today is about pushing a marketing agenda. That and a big part of that was because people were so successful at creating play in the 80s. They really were. You look at a transformer and it demanded to be played with. The idea of a transformer is compelling because it can be a lot of different things. Literally, that's the point, right? The idea behind Barbie is that Barbie can be whatever you want to be. Barbie can do whatever you want her to do, and that's what's compelling about it. Is that this toy is something you use to to play with, to use as basically, you know, an avatar in whatever world or whatever story or whatever life, Ipiluni says, you want to explore. And you can explore that story or that life or that world to whatever degree you want to. It could be the most casual thing. Maybe you just dress Barbie up in a nurse's outfit and you're like, nah, I'm done. Or maybe all of a sudden, all of the other toys that you have are patients. Like, it doesn't matter. And it puts you in a position where you have the creative control over that process. And more and more, what we've been trying to do instead of that is get kids in a position where they are playing with the things that we're trying to sell them. Well, here's the toys of this clique of school kids, and here's the school they go to, and here's their backpacks, and here's their school books. Play with these. And it's like, well, I don't have to play with those. You've already made the cartoon. You're just asking me to reenact scenes from the cartoon or write scenes for the cartoon. You're not demanding my imagination. This toy does not compel me to imagine. This toy is asking me to get good at doing your work for you. That's gross, by the way. I think that problem was always kind of at the core of my creative process with Jump Rangers. I wanted something that kids felt. I wanted to offer tools for play. I wanted to offer tools that allowed kids to create their own stories or imagine their own worlds I wanted to offer kind of a jumping off point and not um, a hard, a hard, well defined, not necessarily universe, but just paradigm for play, right? And the difference between a toy and a game is that a toy offers a vaguely defined paradigm for play. A game offers a very highly defined paradigm for play so that other people can come together and play with a reasonable set of expectations from one another. And then you use the rules as tools for play. That's what the rules are for. They're not there necessarily to constrain the play, they're there to empower group play and to make sure that people are treated fairly when they do play together. And good games accomplish this. Part of the reason I think why I found MOBAs so compelling. When I first had my brain injury, I played a lot of Heroes of the Storm. Knowing what we know about Blizzard, I do not play Heroes of the Storm anymore, which is a little bit sad because it was a fun game. It was really fun, except for frankly the community, which posed. I gaming culture's hard. It's hard. But I genuinely believe that good play helps fix these problems. It's not the only solution, but it is a big part of it. And I've been playing League of Legends lately because I've been missing Heroes of the Storm. And I think that empowering play is very much the brilliance of League of Legends. They create a paradigm where people can kind of uh, be what they want to be and handle the game in their own way while at the same time stepping in and trying to accomplish the same goals. And it's a very elegant design, which is why it's the world's biggest esport. It's not a coincidence, you know. And then you look at Star Citizen and what they're trying to achieve, and they are trying to create boundless play where everybody playing affects everybody else who's playing, and at the same time where there are systems of management to ensure that if somebody's playing in an imbalanced or unfair way, the game corrects for that in terms of the challenges that they face. It's it's kind of the Lord of the Rings of game design in terms of how much stupid work is going into it, and in terms of all the different pieces and puzzles and things that have to get built. And and it's a lot of fun to be a part of, and it's a lot of fun to witness because of that. And it's cool because of that too. You know, the level of detail and everything else. Jump Rangers as a tabletop role playing game, and and jump. You know, my producer and I had a conversation a few months ago about cards, trading card game, because my producer knows the trading card games make money. That's true. And you know, the conversation was, okay, how do we get this out there? How do we throw this out there along? And it's like, you can't. You just can't. You can't throw something together in game design and have it empower people. A game has to be built and tested in such a way as to ensure that the mechanics of the game cultivate the empowerment of the people who are playing it in a way that's consistent with the content that you're creating. Even making Jump Rangers too competitive, which card games can get very easily. Even good card games can be fiercely competitive. That's sometimes the reason people play them. You know, you're building habits when you're playing games, as Ipiluni points out. And it's true. The point, the benefit of gameplay is to develop habits. You want to be developing habits that serve the audience and that also serve the community. And being very competitive in a ha gotcha kind of way is not conducive to working together for the survival of humanity. It's not Jump Rangers. It's not. Even if it's positive. So a Jump Rangers card trading game can't be Magic the Gathering, can't be Pokemon. You know, in that same way, that kind of competition is not healthy for the things that this community is trying to achieve. We're going to have to find a gameplay that's simple in the way and accessible in the way that Jump Rangers needs to be, and at the same time that that cultivates a sense of cooperativeness or of compassion that is hard to arrive at in a trading card game, and that's going to take years of development. It's going to be slow going getting to that trading card game for sure. But I think it's a goal worth pursuing for the simple fact that, as we've discussed, spectacle is doing things that people didn't realize could be done if we make that game. And it's really great. Where else are people going to get that experience? That's exciting to me. And at the end of the day, this is the place that collaborative art, I think, needs to come from. Going back to the habits, I think the big problem that I have with so many Abby games is the habits that they develop aren't healthy at all. You know, they actively encourage you to check in, check in, check in, check in, check in, touch base, get your points, and punch your card, punch your time card, and then try to maximize the time that you have on the game's terms. You know, show up at this time and then win this many games and then log off and then show up at this time and win this game and that, or pay another $25. Whichever you like. Maybe Looney doesn't like that either. You know, and to me, that's not just pay to win. That creates a situation where the privilege of playing as opposed to working on the game is a privilege associated with class. That doesn't bring people together, that separates them. You're not giving poor people an opportunity to play the game too. You're telling poor people to work on the game so that they can get to the same place as the people who are paying for it. That's worse than paying to win. That's paying to play versus free to work. And that's on a very deep level. I know that's kind of like an unconscious thinking thing. And to be honest with you, I imagine most of the game designers behind these games never stop to think about any of the stuff that I'm talking about here. I don't believe for a second that, you know, the creators of, I don't want to name games because everybody works really hard. But you understand what I'm saying. The creators of X or Y popular microtransaction based phone game, mobile game may have, I don't believe that they stop to think, "Oh, geez, I'm turning people into drones." You know, but when I see this game is addictive pop up on my Instagram or whatever, I cringe and I hurt because that's not addiction is not supposed to be the high watermark for our entertainment. That's not empowering to people. We're not giving the audience anything at that point. We're turning them into a resource. Ipiluni says zombies. Yeah. So, I you know, and I'll stop by saying, like, My success in screenwriting, my success in game design has been a constant release of ego because and I'm not the last thing I want to say is I'm not saying that our fetishes or our interests aren't important. Most of my content is about science fiction. Jump Rangers is about science fiction. I use my interests and I use my fascinations as a tool to keep myself from going nuts. I use the fact that I have passion about science fiction and fantasy and made up things, modern fantasy even. I use these things as gateways for myself to serve the people that I'm working with, to serve the people playing my games, to serve the people making my movies, designing. Jump Rangers isn't turning out to look like what I thought it would. It's turning out to look like a Federico Estevao fever dream. And that's beautiful. I am so grateful for that. I could not have gotten any luckier with my creative partner on Jump Rangers. And it's not Federico's job to reach into my imagination and find expressions for the things that I have been creating for the last however long. It's Federico's job to step in and create a universe out of the universe that I've created using his talents and his skills. And he's doing it beautifully. And other people are going to step in and do the same thing to Federico. And this is a conversation he and I have had. He's excited about the prospect. He's a concept artist. This is not Federico's first rodeo. He knows exactly what to expect from this process. And I think he's just glad that I'm not hiding from it. But it all starts with the ideas that I had about Jump Rangers because I knew that those were ideas I could commit to for the next 15 years without losing my damn mind. When I write a science fiction film for somebody, it's because I know it's going to be a long production process and I need something that's going to hold my interest. Otherwise, I'll fail the project. So we need those things, but those things are not the point. The point is to empower everybody that's a part of the process so that they can empower the next people, so that ultimately we all wind up working together to empower the people that are engaging the content, whatever that means. That's probably a pretty good place to leave this. I think that's a good Ranger's Roost. I was not on social media last week. I was writing a screenplay, and I had to go back and rewrite the screenplay. So um, there wasn't a lot of time for other stuff. But I'm back. There's a very good chance I'm going to wind up with another writing project this week. I'm going to do my best to make sure that I follow up on all of our streams anyway. There aren't that many. One of our players on the rookies at 2:30 today may or may not be available. We're going to find out what the story is. Right now, it's looking like we're playing. So stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Blue Sky or on Mastodon. And that's Lou. Very exciting. It's the mailman. And we'll let everybody know right before we go live. So stay tuned for that. Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. We've got Ranger Stories. We're going to be going through one of the very last chapters in a game called Conquest before I start a much deeper rewrite on that project. I need to finish another book first. I'm doing a screenwriting book that Epi Looney recommended. I'll do the screenwriting book and then I'll rewrite a game called Conquest. Metagame on Saturday at 2:30. Join us. Don't be a stranger, Ranger. Thanks for watching.